I'm sure. So empowering members of parliament, as long as there are accountability measures in place to ensure that the money or the goods are accounted for adequately and properly, using that structure and the councillors is a very effective way of getting to people in need. We will partner with local organizations who we have relationships with on a day-to-day basis, churches in communities and other organizations on the ground to cover the ground where needed. Now, in terms of the amount of money, what has been proposed, we got 1.5 million allocated on the Saturday before the Melissa hit. I had reached out to the Prime Minister that morning about it. We had a meeting at OPM about it. We discussed it, and he said he was authorizing $1.5 million as a kind of pre-Melissa effort to prepare us to have something. And that was useful, and we did our best to prepare ourselves with that. Tarpaulins, water, foodstuffs. But of course, the scale of this is so much greater than any of us anticipated, really, because we haven't experienced it before. That really needs to be replenished. I've been in dialogue with him. I believe he's going to announce another 1.5. I think Cabinet was supposed to, for relief purposes, and they're looking at a $3 million for issues to do with cleaning up and the like. I've said to him that the bureaucracy, the administrative requirements as to how you spend that $3 million, and please, public, bear in mind, we don't get this in cash. These are allocations that allow us to trust, as it were, the services, the food stuff from suppliers, and then we send invoices to a state agency who pay them directly. We don't handle any cash. Now, 3 million, when you're faced with thousands of people who are homeless, is not an answer to that question. And I'm not sure that for the major, well, I should put it this way, for the major response to the housing and shelter needs of the people, and even the food and water needs, the MPs cannot be the sole solution. We don't have the capacity to deal with housing needs on that scale. That needs a national reconstruction program with a proper governance structure attached to it and well-resourced. But certainly, if you were to give MPs even $50 million each, that would be something we would be able to make that money count for the people and the people who need it. I'm just throwing that out as a number, but it's many, many multiples of the figures that are being discussed now. And, you know, one has to bear in mind the resource capacity of the country as well. And the government is in the best position to assess what that is. So, you know, we're getting, hopefully, the CRIF payments which have been committed, and we're expecting that the CAT bonds will also make a payment. The government hasn't yet confirmed that, though the media has been suggesting that it's a done deal. I hope it is, but we're waiting on the confirmation. And there are other funds that were in the budget and so on for national disasters. But bear in mind at the same time that there's been a calamitous hit to the economy. So going forward, we're going to see a contraction of the economy. We're going to see a contraction of government revenues. We're going to see a contraction of foreign exchange flows, potentially. On a net basis, with those flows coming in from insurance and so on, it's difficult to know where we stand. But I'm just saying the government has to assess that situation. But this is an unprecedented disaster. And I would be modification of the measurement of GDP. We were supposed to get to the target of 60% of GDP this year, even though the law says we don't need to get there until March 2028. So we're going to get there 2 years early. So there is some fiscal space in the...
All right, so this is just one case. However, I would figure perhaps this might be a situation elsewhere. My question is, have you been seeing the issue of political partisanship affecting the distribution of relief. And I say this based on the conversation I had with a resident who said that a care package truck came to the community twice.
Is going on. And that's why it's so important that the structure, the command structure to manage the distribution of relief is not an ad hoc thing where, you know, a minister get a phone call and respond here, and then somebody else tug him shirt and him respond there. It needs a structure. It needs clear lines of communication. Right now, I got a report yesterday that 8 people were dead in a community in St. Elizabeth. And they were planning to do a mass burial because they're cut off. I can give you the name of the community. It's in my phone. I have reported it, which is not practical because he can't handle every single report. There is no proper command structure in place. They've put in the same old system that has applied under their leadership in the past. And I'm saying, listen, this is bigger than all that. This is much, much bigger than all that. And we need to have something that the people can have confidence in, a broad-based system with leaders from the private sector, leaders from the churches, leaders from the NGO sector. The opposition should be at the table. Roughly half of the country that are interested in the system of democracy voted for the opposition. And, you know, so to exclude us is not wise because you're going to deprive yourselves of vital information, especially given that some of the most badly hit areas are areas where our representatives have been voted into office. So the structure needs to be put in place that's broad-based. There needs to be proper.
Thank you.
There's a question here online from Portland Spice TV. Are there members of the parliamentary opposition on the committees put together by the government to deal with the aftermath of the hurricane? The leader of the opposition addressed that, I believe. No. I was advised that I need to speak with someone as the elected representative to beg them to appeal on my behalf. So no, we're not at the table. We're not on these committees. We also have online Siobhan Campbell. His hand is raised. Siobhan, please unmute and go ahead with your question. Then we'll take another question from the room. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Go ahead, Siobhan. Go ahead, yeah.
All right. While we get Siobhan ready, we'll take another question from the room.
Good afternoon, everybody. Zara Burton with 18 Degrees North. Asking about your CDF funds. 20 million, I believe, is the allocation each MP. Have those been used up in your constituencies? Can they be deployed ASAP? I'm just wondering, just generally, I have another question after that, but just generally speaking, can you get that accelerated in any way, or are there certain rules holding you back?
Okay, so for members of parliament who have returned, you might or might not still have CDF funds remaining. And if you do, it may or may not be accessible based on what it was programmed to do. So there are specific procedures to follow to be able to get funds to do mitigation works. And if you did not have a mitigation fund set aside, then you wouldn't have access to any of it. In the case of new members of parliament, the outgoing member of parliament might have utilized all of those funds already, and the new member of parliament won't have access to a new allocation until March of next year, after the new budget period has ended. You also would have to wait until, if you do have the funds and you need to, I believe that the opposition leader did include in his presentation a call for the reduction in the bureaucracy across the board.
But not for CDF.
I would just add to that, just for public information, how the CDF works is a $20 million annual allocation per constituency. 1.5 of that is for admin support. So it's really 18.5 that's available to be spent. There are certain heads of activities that are, you must allocate that 18.5 across. Welfare, social housing, economic enablement, sports, education, etc. And then you have to design programs which have to go to a parliamentary committee and get approved for each of those. So the whole 8.5 million has to be approved by Parliament before you can get access to it. Now, there has been no decision to modify those rules. What has happened, that 1.5 million that was allocated on Saturday was an addition to the CDF. So it is being spent through the CDF processes, and the same agencies that normally would apply will receive the invoices from the suppliers of the food, water, tarpaulins, etc., and make those payments. They did not require parliamentary approval for that. I guess Cabinet approved it. So I don't think there's much, if anything, available in the 20 million allocation that can be really used. Some people may have some funding for housing, and for example, I have asked whether for what I have in my constituency, which is available for housing, if we can use it for the responding to the needs of people. Right now, a lot of people in Jamaica have leaking roofs, a lot of roof damage. There's a huge demand for zinc and other roofing materials. So I've written to the CDF to ask if we can use that, if my constituency can use those funds for that. And they have indicated that we can. So, they need to broaden that, and that all 63 MPs have that, a facility available. In relation to the $3 million that the PM said would be approved today by Cabinet, or he was expecting it would, I have said, as I said in my opening presentation, rather than go through the normal bureaucracy for that, where you have to get NWA to approve the specific works, they have to send somebody to look at it, and then you have to write them and nominate who the contractor is, because it's below the threshold where it has to go to tender if it's only $3 million, and they can't do anything until that. I'm saying for many of the MPs in these areas, there's no connectivity. So to require them to go through all those just to clear some roads and chop up some trees is really, it's excessive. So what I would suggest is that we just allow a situation where contractors who have a TRN can issue an invoice, the work can be done, and that invoice is then sent for reimbursement in due course.
I also had one more question. This was for Dr. Dawes. Health, mosquito-borne diseases. I know you mentioned it in your presentation that there is a possibility that we will be getting sicknesses come through like dengue. I wanted to know if, as of right now, whether you have heard of any cases of these mosquito-borne illnesses as of yet, and also, I know you mentioned, I think, fogging. I think you may have used a different term, but vector control. What other measures, given the fact that you said that they're coming, what other measures would be necessary to mitigate against that at this point? Because as I think somebody else mentioned, there are some carcasses in different streams, water bodies.
Everywhere. There's water pounding all over those parishes, and there's dead animals all over the place, rotting.
So the question is that posing a health risk as well? And so if you could just address some of the things that, in addition to what you said about vector control, what else from a medical perspective would be necessary to mitigate against those diseases, and also dealing with these dead carcasses and even dead human bodies too that are not claimed?
So what we are faced with now is a public health crisis in the making. we speak about the ponding of water, these water reservoirs that are caused by the receding floods. We do have a very fertile breeding spot for mosquitoes. So we are going to see a massive increase in the mosquito population. And we know that Aedes aegypti, which transmits dengue as well as chickpea and Zika, that is native to all of the parishes that have been affected. With the Haitian migrations that we are seeing coming in, we are at risk for malaria. We must consider that the rotting carcasses of animals can contaminate underground water supplies. If we have a contamination of underground water supplies, we're going to have a significant increase in the number of cases of gastroenteritis. We saw after the Haitian earthquake, there was a rise in cholera that was brought in by relief workers. We don't know if relief workers are coming in with other diseases as well. And we have an incubator now of persons who are living outdoors. They're prone to respiratory conditions and they are prone to gastroenteritis as well as mosquito-borne diseases. So we have to address the breeding sites. That's going to be very difficult to do because of the large areas that have significant water pooling. Fogging can take place, but it is only a temporary measure. We have to get as much as possible mosquito repellents, mosquito nets out there for persons who are exposed to the elements. And we have to be testing water sources very regularly. We have to get the chlorine tablets, the water treatment solutions, as well as tablets, and water. We need to get water. And with all of this, persons in the affected areas, they have to be advised of what to look out for, how to practice proper hygiene, how to, unfortunately, we have to say, isolate bodies so that they don't come in contact with decomposing bodies and they are exposed to infections. So unless we fix primary care immediately, we're going to see this disaster that is man-made if we don't do it right. And I choose that term carefully because if we can prevent a lot of this, if we get the teams out there, if we have a structured response, we get the public education out there, if we evacuate people out of those areas where they're at risk, and we get the potable water and proper food, the hygiene tools that are necessary to avoid these outbreaks, we can do it. There is hope, but we just have to do this the right way.
I just wanted to add one postscript to my answer to your question about the CDF. The CDF, as normally allocated, is not disaster relief funding. It is to help in the constituencies to make life a little easier for people who need help. With the scale of what we're facing, the existing allocation of 20 million cannot be even considered as a response. There needs to be special funding using the resources that have been made available from Jamaica's disaster relief financing structure and any additional resources that we are able to garner from the goodwill that Jamaica enjoys, which is significant across the world, to empower those entities, those people who are in a position to reach those who need help. And it can't be the CDF that's the answer to that.
And speaking as an incoming MP, we didn't even start out with $20 million. So it's whatever has been left behind by the MPs who preceded us that we have to make do with for the rest of the year. Let's hear now from Siobhan Campbell from Nationwide. Please unmute and go ahead, Siobhan.
If I'm not seeing Siobhan on mute, can I take the stage?
Yes, please go ahead. Say your name and the media house you represent.
My name is Colin Bell, Portland Spice TV. I have about 3 questions. I heard MP Jess said that she went in search of a community yesterday. Could you expound a little bit more on that for us, because you say you did not find that community? I also want to ask, does the People's National Party as a party can source assistance for the people who needs help? And of course, Comrade Natalie, do you think this is a stage where the Minister of Local Government needs to use that equalization fund to provide more funding for councillors? Thank you.
All
Jess
right.
first.
So we'll go to Jeff.
So when I mentioned that I could not find the community, I'm referring to the community of Mariba. And we started out by checking the access points to the communities. So we went to one location where that is the road that should lead to Mariba, and there was no road. There were just crumbling asphalt. There was just debris of asphalt. We went to another location that should have been the other way to enter the community, and it was just totally impassable. Everything, the road was broken away, split totally. We were told that we may be able to find the community by going through a dirt road in the hills. And so we went into the hills trying to find the dirt road, took several dirt roads and could not find the community until further, about 2.5 hours later, we found a house, and they told us that if we continued to walk, as we couldn't drive, so if we continued to walk, we would find another house further down, and they would have to call out the community to come to us, because the community, they are trapped inside of the community. They are trapped in the community. So that is the reality on the ground. People are marooned, and they can't get in and they can't get out. Thankfully, I've made arrangements for some heavy-duty equipment to be brought into the area today to try and get them access. So hopefully I'll have better news later tonight.
Yes, so I believe that the local government system has an SGR, which is a facility that is provided to assist with emergencies. After dialogue with the local government minister, they were allowed, councillors and mayors are allowed to utilize some of what is available, if any, in their SGRs, which is their emergency funds. But I believe it's not enough. I believe the equalization fund can be utilized. So I'm answering you, yes, it can be utilized to empower our local government representatives, as they are the first port of call. Everybody goes to the councillor first. Most times because they are living in the same communities with them. And so they should also be empowered, whether through the equalization fund or a special disbursement through the national budget at this time, to be able to assist with what is happening on our parochial roads. So while we are engaged in clearing our main roads so that major vehicular traffic can go through, our community roads need to be cleared urgently, because they can't get into major communities to be able to purchase food and to be able to have access to medication. And so there has to be a great emphasis at this time to empower our local government representatives to be able to respond quickly.
I think the second question was to do with the People's National Party and fundraising and so on for disaster relief. So in the last week or so, we have developed a capacity as a party to respond to the needs that we're seeing on the ground, and that our elected representatives at the local government, the councillors, and the national level, the MPs, are communicating to us. So we have the capacity to receive financial contributions locally and from overseas. And we have relationships that we've developed with established charities that would import and make the relief supplies available for distribution. And we're putting in a structure for this with an accountability element, because we want to account for every dollar received and every item received and distributed. And the treasurer of the party is helping to design this. She has been managing this process for the past week, and we're bringing on additional human resources to give support so we can have a robust mechanism for anyone who wants to assist through our portal. Now, I gather that there's some thought among the government that they want to stop anything coming in other than through ODPEM and the state system. I would caution against that. I think that people have their preferences, donors have their preferences. Let us not deny any Jamaican in need the opportunity to receive a benefit which a donor would be inclined to provide for them through a particular channel, by saying everything has to go through the state channel. I think there should be coordination. I think we should collaborate and share information, as long as that is on an open basis and there's genuine sharing of information. But I don't think we should just restrict this whole relief to one channel, because that is going to result in people not benefiting as much or at all from what is available. And so I encourage the government to rethink that, if that is indeed the way they've been thinking.
Okay, let's try once more for Siobhan. Siobhan, please unmute and we'll take your question.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Hearing you well.
Good afternoon. Siobhan Campbell, Nationwide News. I have just two quick questions to the opposition leader. You said that the matter at hand is not one of politics. And while we understand the suggestions you've put forward, is it wise then to have a press conference of this nature, which essentially raises the matter to a political discussion? And second, there is a criticism that is going around suggesting that the opposition is attempting to govern from the opposition benches. How do you address that?
Well, the opposition cannot govern the country. We don't have any authority or status in governing the country. The civil service respond to cabinet. We are not part of that system. And all state agencies ultimately respond to ministers who are in cabinet. So that point is really nonsense. But the first issue about whether this is political, we are sharing information with the public. We have information which is important. We have ideas which we feel are important. And we feel that, that there's nothing, as long as we're approaching this in a spirit of national unity and to help Jamaica come out of a desperate situation, we ought to and should share our ideas with the public. And that's what we're doing. We haven't today attempted to criticize the government. We have made suggestions. We've pointed out where there are weaknesses, but we're not seeking to criticize the government at all at this point in time, because this is not the time for that. This is a time for us as an opposition to work with the government if they will let us. And if they won't let us, we will still work in the interest of the nation as a whole, Labourite and PNP, because we are all Jamaicans and we want Jamaica to recover from this. If we don't pull together, our corner dark. So let us pull together as one people and use the best resources available to us, the best thinking available to us, the best organizational skills available to us, with a common heart for the interests of the people who are suffering right now.
And there's no better note to end this press conference. If you go home tonight and you can lay your head on a dry pillow, if when you look up you don't see stars, you are blessed. We in the West, we need your help. Pray for us. Pray for Jamaica, land we love. Have a good evening.